I still remember in one of my first lessons with you in the doctorate, you said something like, this is the box. My job here is to make you peek on each border of the box so you can see all the possibilities that you have to do whatever you want.
And now I would probably say to you, get rid of the box. Say, there's no box. I mean,
we have to start somewhere. I mean, we have to, for the students who never play the piano, they have to start in the box and then have the tools to go out. But if you're talking about
somebody who can't read notes, who doesn't know where middle C is, who doesn't know what a scale is, yes, but I'm not really talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's really easy to teach that level and then say, okay, now we're going to stretch out, and pretty soon you don't have a box anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the key is to really not be frozen and not be just in a static position. Because once you stop moving and once you're there, then you create all kinds of, as a dancer, for instance, if you stop moving, you're not dancing.
Mm-hmm.
As a pianist, if you stop moving and you stop breathing, you're not going to be able to play. You will be able to play, but I mean on the level that if you want to play Chopin Ages or whatever, it's very constricting. And so the reason I say this in such an extreme way is these aspects of, let's say, breath, and so let's say we start with breath. Everybody has to breathe. A lot of pianists play and they don't breathe. I mean, they obviously are breathing enough to stay alive, but they really are not breathing, right? And that affects the expression. So obviously, Chopin didn't create these etudes to help people wiggle their fingers. It was also how to express emotion. So feeling has to do with, you have to, first of all, breathe. You have to breathe with the music. Like if I play, or if I play, it's like, so you, the breathing has to start. You might as well start the breathing while you're pointing out where middle C is, or how to play a scale, or anything. So then you have feeling. This is, I sort of kind of synthesize this for how I teach now, because I don't, as I said to you before, I don't teach like I used to teach, well, because I've been moving along in my own life. So there's the emotional feeling, right? So if now, in order to play, put my emotional feeling in line with Chopin, I have to have a tactile sense of feeling as well, right? So that's, and that has to do with, I mean, what is that? These sensations are, you feel the key going up and down, you can feel the key dip, you can feel the temperature of the key, and in some pianos, if you're very, depending upon how it's set up, you can even feel the vibration of the string through the key. So there's that aspect, and so you put these two parts of feeling together with the breath, and then the next part of it is you have to be balanced. So you can't I talk about it as a, 4-point sitting position. I don't know what Chopin said, but he had to have been aware of some of this in order to play. Like maybe 1, 2, and 2 cheeks here. So you have, still wherever you are. Because if I'm playing this way, for instance, or let's say, you see people doing that all the time, right? As opposed, so you have to be like the center of a seesaw. So you have, if you have, I don't know that I've ever had a student that came in to play something like this that didn't play. And then I say, can you reach the ends of the piano? And they say yes. So then why can't you just sit here? And the answer really is because they're too close to the piano, so they don't have enough space. So
but they also want to add an extra layer of personification of the ocean by the motion sickness that you get while you're playing it that way.
But I think that anybody that goes in the ocean, like if you talk about balance, if I think of the place to be most balanced in the world, I would go to the Dead Sea. Because when you're in the Dead Sea, there's so much salt, right? So, yeah, I mean, you can say that you're in the ocean here, but so what's holding you up? You need to use what I would call your anti-gravity muscles a little bit because we're not in the ocean. But you can make much more dynamics. You can control it if you're in balance. So, with piano is actually, in a way, harder than dance because it has so many little muscle groups that come into play here. So, so then if you have balance, and then you need really this kind of awareness. Awareness is sort of like what some people would call your sixth sense or maybe your third eye. I mean, it is, you could say, maybe it's a sense of feeling flow in music, but it's, that is the hardest part to teach so that the student then can go out and do whatever he or she wants. That's a whole other story to take over. Because you have to be able to synthesize all of this, and at the same time, you need to have a kind of conductor, and you have to have a kind of a sensitivity and an antenna that's going to tell you where to go, or what I call making a discovery. I mean, what I love about practicing more than performing, I mean, it's not that I don't love performing, but when you perform, you have to keep track of a lot of stuff. So you don't want to be practicing on stage. So, but when you're practicing, you can let go of that, that extra conductor level. And something will happen, and like I'll say, oh wow, I didn't realize that. Like, I never realized the importance of sliding. And Chopin isn't here for me to talk to him. But I bet you that he knew about sliding because just of his pieces and how developed he was.
What do you mean by sliding exactly?
Well, let's say if we go back to, let's say, the basic. I think that one of the things that Chopin came into the world when, people were maybe not throwing their forte pianos out of the window, but, the flail was in Erard. And, if if everybody that plays the piano could play an art or a play, it would be great, just even for 5 minutes, because the actions were a little bit lighter, and the key is very, very responsive. Not as quick, but very responsive. So, for instance, if if you moving right and left can be done in different kinds of ways, but mostly we do, well, just to take this, most people, so I slide this way. It requires practically no effort. About Chopin that he kept his arms close by his side. And then there's this little thing, except when he didn't. But most of the time, I think he was here. So I'm not quite sure that this, I mean, there are many, many ways of playing any piece, right? So if you do it, I'm inside the key and I'm sliding around a lot. So that is a kind of a spin-off from, Chopin, all of Chopin's pieces, whether you're focusing on the etudes or you're focusing on whatever piece you want to, like this. So here's a good example of sliding. All of these pieces use the same technique. I mean, I think it's what he talked about. Like this is, so we have a pivot finger here. That was a, and here we have turning. So if you turn with his fingering, then the triplets come out automatically. So that's one of the, like you said, well, how do we know that he really did all this stuff? So I've by now gone through a lot of his music, most of it, and I kind of check him out all the time to see if it's like, so the turning is, the turning is, I think, how he taught his students to play scales. And it came up, it came up in conversation with Shebek and myself. So, it came up in that sonata. And I went in and played it, and he said, "Why are you using that finger?" And I said, "Well, I thought I would apply turning." So he said, "Oh." So we got into this, like, all of this Beethoven, even Mozart. If I slow it down, you can really see it. But, the better you play, the smaller your motions get. So you don't see it so well. So, I mean, this idea of turning is like a miracle. Because the right hand always Turning, the right hand turns to the right, always. So some people call it rotation, but Chopin called it turning.
And Sherwood used to use an orange to demonstrate that, or he used it in a master class. Kind of like if the hand has a circular motion, the orange plays the smoothest scale. I don't know if you remember that master class. It's on a video somewhere.
Yeah, I haven't seen that master class. Right, so this. So there's turning in arpeggios as well, but you need a little bit of arm. So scales are actually easier than arpeggios because you don't need your arm. So if you're just doing arpeggios, this, you know. I mean, I'm showing you this because it's very much easier to play the piano using the modern technique.
Using this, yeah.
Modern technique should be applied, in my opinion, you know. I mean, let's say you want to. I mean, this is modern piano, so you can get any sound you want, but you might as well make yourself at home using modern style piano technique.